A graduate of the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, as well as Wayne State University for his MBA. After spending time in corporate America, he found his greater passion in working with youth. So after being employed for several years in the auto industry right out of college, he made the giant leap of faith in 2010, leaving a very comfortable living, to follow his dream of speaking and prove that one cannot put a price tag on passion.
Mr. Peace currently resides in Michigan, loves to kayak, travel, create music, play basketball, and spend time with those who matter most, especially his beautiful wife, Samantha, and their 3 dogs. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Zawala.
All right, it's an honor to be here with you guys this morning. My name is Kevin, or Mr. Peace, and it's cool to see some familiar faces. I guess I was here in 2014, and it's just kind of cool to see where the journey's taken me, all over this country, really. But before I start today's program, I thought I'd open up with some hip-hop, if that works for you guys. All right, so just to wake us up this morning, 2 fingers up for peace, and let's just rock it. Get all my hip-hop skills from Miss Sherry Hunter over there, and here we go. Mic check. Let's go. Listen, it's love over hate, it's peace over wars, the dream, the MLK, Gandhi lived for, but now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. It's love over hate, peace over wars, the dream, the MLK, Gandhi lived for, but now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. Mr. Peace, empty heart, just to see that my dreams aren't as empty as my conscience seems to be. You still can't see my dreams, then you need LASIK surgery. I'm seeing 2020 and living life officially. The moment I arrive, I'm tripped by what I realize, that which makes me come alive. And it's just not fair, so I'll keep making strides for being skeptical remains, and I'll flourish and I'll thrive with the full amount of praise. See the people are my passion, and the reason that I'm rapping, bringing inner satisfaction, the fuel, a chain reaction, aspire inspiration for your players' exploration. Only love is what I'm strapping in, the ropes I'm making happen. It's love over hate, peace over wars, the dream, the MLK, and Gandhi lived for, but now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. Life. Alright, now we're warmed up. Alright. Nice. That's how I get up every morning, a different beat on my alarm clock, and I just start freestyling. I'm joking. It's really a privilege to be here with you guys to share my heart again. I'm a full-time youth pastor at a church about 30 miles west of Detroit. On my off days, my off weeks, I get to travel this whole country, and I get to speak to people from age 5 up to age 105. But before I begin any of my talks, before I start to speak to my audiences, I'd just like to let everybody here know that every single breath that I take this morning is going to be worth your time. The hook, my track, it says that it's love over hate, it's peace over war, it's the dream that MLK and Gandhi lived for. But now it's our time to keep doing right, because we know in just 2 seconds we can save a life. See, when we understand that our words, our actions, our thoughts, us being all in for this planet can potentially save lives, then we have to get past our fears, past our pains, past anything that's holding us back from being 100% in to this life. And today's topic is going to focus on leadership, success, and confidence. But until we fully embrace our fears, like feel them, but know our power over them, and we get past, some of the hurts that are still clouding our hearts, we can't be the leaders that we were designed to be for this earth. And look, here's the problem, right? Every one of us, per minute, the average human being has 50 or 60 thoughts per minute, right? And that equates, on average, in one given day, you're taking about 60 to 78,000 thoughts. And this could be whether you chose to have orange juice or apple juice this morning, or an apple or a pear or a donut. Those donuts look pretty good, but whether you put the left pant leg on before the right, whether you choose to listen to one word I have to say today, right? So take a guess out of these 60 to 78,000, for the average person, what percentage are negative in nature? What do you think? 50? Higher. What do you think?
75.
Higher than 75? 80. 80%, and you guys can't guess because you're really close to the thing, okay? But 80% of the thoughts that we're having for the average person are negative in nature. So that means that this negative thought I'm having on a daily basis is going to potentially turn into a negative consequence, right? We're playing the same negative record over and over and over again. And out of these 60 to 78,000, 98% of them are the same ones that we've been having just yesterday, which means we're creatures of habit. So we keep playing this negativity over and over and over in our heads. And I can't tell you how many youth I meet that have this self-hatred going on or this non-love, but this is why. Anybody ever had food poisoning before? Show of hands. Hopefully not this morning, right? Okay, hands down. I had it from Taco Bell once. I'm not going to go into details, but basically when you have food poisoning, your body rejects it, right? In more areas than one. And when it comes to food, like that you eat that's bad, yeah, your body will reject it. But when we poison our minds with lies that people tell us, say that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not enough, you're worthless, you're a mistake, you're the problem, and you believe these lies, your body and heart don't know the difference. It'll accept whatever you tell it, right? So we have to be able to get past this. And when you think about it, for so many people, it takes years, sometimes their whole life, to get past what people have labeled them as, right? I was doing a talk near Milwaukee, Wisconsin at an elementary school. And the second grade teacher came up and she interrupted my whole assembly in front of everybody. And she said, "Hey, Mr. Peace, everybody, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I just got to share something on my heart." So I said, "Yeah, go ahead." So I gave her the mic. And she said her most painful memory was 40 years ago, back in second grade. And she was in class and her teacher called her up to the front of the class. Her first name was Elizabeth. And the teacher said, "Class, we have to teach Elizabeth how to do math because she's too stupid to do it herself." The teacher, in front of her 30 classmates, it just destroyed her. And it wasn't until she was like in her 40s that she finally forgave this person. But she was always playing the same record in her mind, like every time she wanted to try something new, "I can't do that, I'm not smart enough." When she got put in the classes for people with learning disabilities, she defined herself as that. I had this girl, I just spoke at a school, high school near Chicago. And she came on the mic at the end of the program just to share what's on her heart. And she told everybody there that she had these friends. And this is why she had to switch schools, but she had these friends all the way through elementary, middle school, her first couple of years of high school. And all of a sudden, they turned on her because she started putting on some weight. And she remembers to the exact day when some of her friends looked her in her face and she said, why aren't we friends anymore? And one of them told her, "Go look in the mirror." And another one said, "You're taking up too much oxygen. How can you even fit through the doorway?" And she keeps playing this over and over in her mind. "I'm too big to try this. I'm too big for this. I'm too heavy." My speaking mentor was talking to a high school in Detroit in the early 90s before you guys were born. And at the end of his assembly, he's kind of like a 75-year-old Santa Claus, right? He's just pure heart. Jim Tuman's his name, from Royal Oak, Michigan. But at the end of his assembly, this high schooler came up, and for 2.5 hours, at the end of the day, he stayed after school to just unload all this stuff on his heart. And he tells my mentor that he's having problems at home, problems with his grades, problems with school, his parents on the verge of divorce. There's some abuse issues going on, drug abuse issues, his biggest problem, he's getting bullied because of his size. And 5 years later, my mentor sees him on TV. His first name was Marshall. It was Eminem. And you see, pain doesn't escape celebrities, it doesn't escape any of us. If you're a human being, and I think all of us are, we will feel pain. We have billions of nerve endings in our body, right? But we always have a choice how we're going to respond to that, to the failures, to whatever brings us this emotional stress and this pain, right? So what else gets in the way besides fear? What do you think gets in the way that hurts our hearts to get past, to be fully in? What do you think? What other things get in the way? What do you guys think? Doubt? Anxiety? How about loss? Death? Right? Divorce? Bullying? Homework? Expectations, right? All these things continue to get in our way. Let's start with fear, though. I was at a workshop in Toledo, Ohio back in 2006. It was a Challenge Day workshop. You guys might have heard of that program, but they challenge youth to be the change. And this was like the next step to Challenge Day, so it was like Challenge Day on steroids. And it was like getting real and vulnerable. And after 3 days with these people, I was closer to them than my own family because I finally got real with a lot of things in my life. I lowered the waterline. But I remember the first activity, there was 50 of us, total strangers, 25 men, 25 women. And the first activity was putting on some dance music and hitting play and calling us in one at a time into this circle to dance in front of everybody for about 20 seconds each. So it was a little bit scary, right? You guys can imagine. And it's coming to me, like it keeps coming down the line. I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do to look cool? Like I got to think about this, right? And I'm like thinking, should I do the moonwalk, the robot, Macarena? What am I going to do? So finally, I just get in there and they call me and I just embraced it. And I'm just like, just mowing the grass. I'm like, well, the grass is long, you gotta mow it, okay? And so I just keep going. And then the next person I pick, he's like hiding behind somebody, so that's why I picked him. I said, come on in. And it was Dane. Same thing. The guy's like so nervous to get in there, and then all of a sudden he just like embraces it. He's like, hey. And then, so our first break, he finds me, and he comes up to me and says, Mr. Peace, I'm so pissed that you picked me. But I needed it. I needed it. Because then the two facilitators of this workshop came up to us after and they said, how was that like your life? Are you 50% in? Are you 75% in? Or are you 100% in? Because up until that point, I was like 55, 60, right? And you think about Halloween, we just had it recently, right? How many of you guys still trick-or-treat? Show me hands. Okay. How many of you guys think that I still trick-or-treat? Yes, I do. 6'4", go up to these houses, like, son, you look a little tall, if you trick-or-treat. I say, just put the candy in the bag. It's like 3 and 4-year-olds skip into the doorway and just cut them off. No, I'm joking, I did that. But Halloween, for so many people on many U.S. surveys, is one of their favorite, like top 3 holidays, not just because of candy, but because it's one day out of the year you can creatively express who you are, and you're not judged because of it. But the other 364, we do an awesome job of putting on the mask. But it takes so much energy to be someone that you're not. And there's this thing like healthy fear versus unhealthy fear. Like healthy fear is like something that helps you focus, like before the SAT, ACT, right? Or before an exam or like a competition or a game. Like that's healthy, right? Then there's an unhealthy fear that paralyzes us. And I think back, I played basketball at Southline High School. Southline, Michigan, kind of by Novi. And I was a junior on varsity, and I had a really good summer camp down in Cincinnati. I was scoring a lot of points, had a lot of assists, like I was playing good. Well, we were playing Howell that day, at Howell. And I remember the seniors had a really off game, like they just weren't playing good. So coach says, Zawala, get in there. So I get in there, and they run a play for me, first play down. Flex, and I've made this layup like 1,000 times in practice, and I catch the ball on the left side of the basket and I'm wide open, right? And as soon as I turned, like all these thoughts started going into my mind. It was, what are my parents thinking that are watching in the stands, like, what if I miss this? What is the opposing crowd thinking? What's the bench thinking? Should I even be on the court? Do I deserve to even be here? And I remember, hit the backboard, no rim. I got pulled right out. Guys, when we start realizing that fear is forgetting everything's all right, false evidence appearing real, we can finally be all in. Because if you're not, then you're not even in that game, like it was for myself. And I think about all the opinions out there, right? But not all of them matter. What matters is what we think of ourselves, that we have the effort, not always the outcome. We do our best, then we rest, right? Because for me, I put on the mask all throughout middle school, all throughout high school, part of college. But it was so draining. It was so exhausting. But to finally be myself, to not have to worry how much foundation I put on in the morning anymore. I don't put a foundation on. But I mean, I'm just like, I just don't care anymore. Like, I just try to break down norms just to like get people out of their comfort zone, because it's a dangerous place to be. When I go shopping, my wife, there's certain times she just starts walking the other way. And I always have a patented cart leg kick that I do. So I make sure there's a lot of people around, like when I'm at Meijer or Kroger or something like that. And as soon as I see a lot of people, I do like that. I just keep walking. And people are like getting their cereal. They're like, it's okay. I was at Subway eating fresh, right? Getting my cold cut trio, what I usually get. And they're playing that song over the intercom. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Hold on. And it's getting to that part where it builds and it goes, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Boom. As soon as I paid, I realized in a split second, because I was just getting a carry out, it was lunchtime, it was crowded, that basically as soon as I get to that door, it's going to be that part of the song, right? So I coordinate my steps like perfectly. And as soon as I got there, I was like, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Boom. I walked out. And everybody's like, they're eating their sub, they're like, what the, I mean, I just do crazy stuff like that. Like this is, I don't know if you guys have been to Meijer before, but I probably tested the weight limits. And I wrote Sandy, there's this 3-year-old says, sir, I want to ride it too. I said, just wait your turn. Okay, I paid my penny. And I remember shopping, and I got in like the bread and meat and cheese section. And I'm like, first things first, take 2 loaves of bread, and then you take some meat, cheese, and mustard, and you start to spread it. Ooh, you spread it on the sandwich. Ooh, because you made me a sandwich. And my wife's like, I don't know that guy, I'm gonna walk to the parking lot. So if we can embrace this, we can move past a lot of the fears in our life. I had a dream, because we also have to move past the pain and the other things that are holding us back. And I don't tell fake dreams. But I had a dream, there were 2 polar bears. And they were in a corner, like outside where I lived. And they're scheming about how they're going to steal my Jeep, Patriot. And they're the ones like, hey, what would you do for Klondike bar? Well, I'd steal Mr. Peace's Jeep. And I'm like, guys, I hear you, I'm standing right here. And they're bigger than me, so they just said, well, whatever, we're going to take it. So they started driving away, and I remember latch on, I'm like, guys, come on, pull over, come on. So, and then all of a sudden, one of them bites my arm. And I remember waking up like in that instant, and not feeling anything. So many times you hear the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? But the bigger question we should be asking ourselves is on a scale of 1 to 10, how many of you feel? Because I reached a point in my life back in 2010, I shut down. I became numb. It's hard to maintain the peace when you get the phone call that your friend passed away 24 years old. And there's nothing you can say or do, yeah, that's protocol. You just pray for healing at the friend's closed casket funeral. His only crime not being buckled in the back seat. So when they hit the median, he flew at least 50 feet. Out the hatchback of his best friend's SUV, at least when it happened, he was already fast asleep. Now heading back home at 96 eastbound, took the cops a while just to track the body down. And at the viewing, you just sit and watch, but without a sound, while inside you're screaming about to cough up half a lung. numb to the touch because it doesn't seem real. His boy only fell asleep for a second driving behind the wheel. But that's all it took, though. Can only imagine all the pain he feels. Parents have to bury their kids. It's surreal. 2010 was my hardest year on this planet, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I lost a dear friend of mine, Steve Nagel, back towards the end of 2009 in October. And it started from there. I got a phone call at 7 in the morning from my friend Nick. He said, Steve's dead. He was in the back of an SUV unbuckled, and the DD, the designated driver, was supposed to be sober, had a few beers, he was buzzed. They were heading home from a bar in Detroit, and going 95, he fell asleep for just 2 seconds. They hit a concrete median, and Steve went out the hatchback. He died on impact. And a month later, I get a phone call from Grandma Flo saying, Peyton's gone. 2 in the morning, Peyton's gone. I said, what are you talking about? She said, Peyton's dead, 17 years old. Former high school youth group member of mine at a previous church I was at. She just graduated. I saw her that last July. I said, Peyton, I'd love to have you come back, be a young adult leader for our high schooler. She said, sure, I'll be there. And those are the last words that I heard from her. Her dad got home late off work, like he always did, and the light in the room was still on. He just thought she forgot to turn it off, and he walked in and saw her on her knees with her head against the closet, and he pulled her back, and she was lifeless. They tried to resuscitate her for half an hour, ambulance. They couldn't. Heroin overdose. So I get there about 2:45 in the morning. Grandma Flo just falls in my arms. And what are you supposed to say? What are you supposed to feel? So not even 2 weeks after that, my friend Josh, 22-year-old, dies from an oxycodone overdose. 2 weeks after that, a friend of mine, Chad, playing semi-pro baseball in Florida, they just won a championship. He had a little too much to drink. He's heading home, passes a semi on a 2-lane highway just to meet another oncoming semi. He dies on impact. So I attend back-to-back funerals. My heart's starting to get pretty full. Same month, I'm diagnosed with hepatitis C. Hepatitis is the inflammation of your liver. You need your liver to live. A and B have vaccines and cures, C doesn't. The treatment at the time was self-injections once a week for 52 weeks and 6 pills a day that make you want to throw up. It was like a liquid chemotherapy. And I lost 45 pounds the first month. You can tell, already being pretty skinny. It caused health complications that entire year. I was in and out of ER. A couple weeks after I get diagnosed, my uncle fighting brain cancer passes. Same month, another uncle fighting leukemia, dies. That June, my grandmother passes, and the same month, my grandfather. And I'm pallbearer for back-to-back funerals. My heart's ready to explode. And this is me on the outside. Everything's cool, everything's fine. But inside, I'm dying. I'm screaming. And it all culminates in August when I'm outside my apartment in Ypsilanti, Michigan with my cousin who's pregnant at the time. And 2 guys in hoods and masks come through and put pistols at our stomachs and say, empty your pockets. And it's a moment in your life where everything flashes before your eyes and you start to appreciate things a little more. And you start to think about what's really important. I remember the weeks to follow. I hated the people that did that to us. I hated the situation. I hated the loss. I hated a lot of things in my life. I didn't care how I treated people. I was hurting. And finally, I woke up one day. I said, the best way to honor their legacy is by how I choose to live today. To make sure that they didn't die in vain, that they still live on through my heart, is by my actions. By being all in every day, knowing there's no guarantees, giving all I can, every breath, every heartbeat to this world. Because you see, yes, I was definitely broken physically, and I was healed, and almost 10 years later, the disease is still not traceable in my body. But even more important than that, I was healed in here, right? So even though we're broken, we're still okay. And you know, sometimes these storms have to happen in order for rainbows to appear, right? You might have heard the story before, but there's a guy doing his dishes. And I'm sure all of you, when you get home from school today, are going to go right into the kitchen and say, Mother, Father, please let me do the dishes, okay? I just have a seat. I would just love to just help you out today. Vacuum, clean the windows, no. But he's doing the dishes, and it's about noon, and he sees this soon-to-be butterfly struggling to get out of the cocoon, right? And doesn't think much of it, but he comes back about 3 hours later, and it's moved like a millimeter, this caterpillar. He's like, I gotta help it. So he gets a pair of scissors, runs out there, cuts it, falls right out, easily. But what he just did is he just doomed this potential butterfly from being a butterfly. Because it needed the struggle in order to bloom. It needed the struggle to have enough fluid pumped through its body and wings to become a butterfly. It needed this suffering almost, right? And what he ended up doing was making sure that it was only going to have a shriveled body, shriveled wings for the rest of its life. And there's a story about a Cherokee Native American grandfather and his grandson. And every night he would get a story from his grandfather. And the grandson goes to the grandfather and says, hey, tell me a story tonight. He says, okay, today's story is about two wolves. These two wolves that battle in all of our hearts. And one wolf is greed and envy and hate and jealousy and unforgiveness, pride. And the other one is love, compassion, kindness, empathy, peace, understanding, right? He said, well, grandfather, which wolf wins? And he looks at his grandson and he says, the one that you feed. It's the one that you feed, right? And look, I'm not saying that forgiving is easy. I'm not saying that moving past any of this stuff is easy by any stretch of the imagination. I have a friend of mine, and he didn't talk to his mom for 41 years. Any 16-year-olds here? 16? All right, hands down. He was 16. He got in a fight with his mom over smoking cigarettes. Right? And it's kind of small, like in the grand scheme of things, right? But he said, I'm never talking to you again. And she said the same thing. And they kept to that promise for 41 years. And then he gets a call. She's out in California living in an assisted living home. He's in Michigan. Gets a call that she's on her deathbed. And something just sparked in his heart. He said, okay, I got to try to at least make amends before she passes. And he missed the opportunity by 2 hours. And he can't forgive himself. My wife used to live in Redford, and she came home from work one day and pulled into the driveway, and there was a paramedics in the driveway. She had two roommates, Renee and Jenny. And she's like, what's going on? She like rushes in, turns out they were doing heroin. But the supply they just got had been laced with rat poison. And one lived and one didn't. 27 years old. And Renee can't forgive herself for what happened to her friend. I had a high schooler, this 11th grade girl, run out of my talk once. She came back after, she was crying. And she said, Mr. Peace, I can't forgive myself. I said, what's going on? She tells me she just had a softball tournament about 3 weeks ago. And her dad drove her there, and she's hanging out with her friends afterwards, and they're celebrating because they just won the tournament. And her dad's like, okay, you guys, you had your time to celebrate, but we gotta get going back, okay? And she's like, Dad, you're so annoying, right? I mean, sometimes parents can be like that. And it kind of escalates a little bit, and she's trying to kind of show off in front of her friends. She says, Dad, I wish you just dropped dead. He's like, you know what, find your own ride home. So she did. And she pulls around her street in her subdivision, and she sees an ambulance in her driveway. And her dad, 38 years old, got home, started working in the garage, and literally dropped dead from a heart attack. And she can't forgive herself, right? I share with you some of their most painful memories, mine. When were some of your most painful memories? When? When were some of your most painful memories? Anybody? Adults too, yeah.
I was 9 years old. It was my sister's 12th birthday. My aunt took us out to Red Robin's. My mom had come with my little sister. She decided that she wanted to leave early, and the last thing she said to my sister and I for 10 years is, I'll see you when you're 18. I was 9.
What's your name?
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. It takes courage. Guys, tears are strength. Whoever knows her, please support her too today. But she just said being abandoned, basically. Tears are the sweat of our strength, and you're starting to heal and feel. That's good. Thanks for your courage. Anybody else? When was your most painful memory? Anybody? Adults included? Yeah.
I got two.
Yeah, sure.
When I was 11, I got picked up from school early. I was in 6th grade. And I got picked up by my aunt and told my mother was on her deathbed.
Your mom was on your deathbed.
She
Yeah.
had stage 4 cancer.
With cancer.
And then back in April 2016, I woke up and my dad was dead.
Your dad died too. What's your name?
Mitchell.
Mitchell. Takes courage. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? We gotta move on, but look, what's the question I asked? Pay really close attention right now. What's the question I asked? What did I ask? Anybody? What did I say? You guys remember? No, not what. I said when. I said, when was your most painful memory? And if I went around the room and we had time for everybody, you'd all tell me what it was. Some to the exact day, minute, second, right? I only asked when, but everybody told me what, which means it's still raw. It's still on your heart. Because you remember it happened yesterday, right? So that's something to be conscious of as we move forward. But there's hope. There's so much hope, guys, and people that are able to move past these crazy incidents. This is Eddie Guzman de Jesus hugging Jordan Howe. He's 15 years old in this picture. And Jordan thought it'd be cool to bring his stepdad's gun to school one day to show it off to his friends in a paper bag. Gets on the bus, he pulls it out, says, guys, look, pulls it at the ground, nothing. Points it at a girl named Lourdes, a 13-year-old, kills her. They're in the courtroom down in Dade County, Miami, near Miami, Florida. And they're ready to put him away, charge him as an adult, 2 life sentences. He won't see the light of day. Last second, the mom, Addie, says, stop. I'm willing to drop all the charges if he comes with me for the next 5 years to talk about gun violence across this country. They're hugging here. And they go, all these reporters, like afterwards, they like swarm her in the courtroom lobby. They said, why did you do this? This guy just killed your daughter. And she said, because Lourdes would have wanted me to. I can't even imagine, right? If somebody did this to someone that I knew. I had the privilege of visiting, not too long ago, Sandy Hook, Newtown, Connecticut, quite a few schools in that area to bring some healing. For those of you that don't remember or do, 2012, 26 people, mainly elementary students, lost their life to one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history. The whole focus of the community is not on the tragedy, though. They want to focus on kindness. 2nd grade class gave me this, and they all signed it. And it says, one kind word can change someone's entire day. But see, I'm a firm believer that one kind word can save someone's life. And if that's the case, then how we define true success, how we need to become more confident to be these leaders that this world desperately needs, it's even more vital, right? There's a speaker, you might have heard of him, Nick Vujicic, and he's from Australia, no arms, no legs, how he was born. He's in his 30s, has a wife, 2 kids, speaks all over the world. And growing up, you can imagine how severely he got bullied, right? To the point that multiple times he contemplated taking his life. But he ended up pushing past this. I want to play a quick clip from him, and then we're going to talk about it.
But honestly, along the way, you might fall down like this. Ready? Ready? So what do you do when you fall down? Get back up. Everybody knows to get back up, because if I start walking, I'm not going to get anywhere. But I tell you, there are some times in life where you fall down and you feel like you don't have the strength to get back up. Do you think you have hope? Because I tell you, I'm down here, face down, and I have no arms, no legs. It should be impossible for me to get back up, but it's not. You see, I will try 100 times to get up, and if I fail 100 times, if I fail and I give up, do you think that I'm ever going to get up? No. But if I fail, I try again, and again, and again. But I just want you to know that it's not the end. It matters how you're going to finish. Are you going to finish strong? And you will find that strength to get back up like this.
All right, give it up for Nick. So look, you know, this is pretty cool because when he's talking about success, so many times we're going to be unable to forgive, and that's okay. So many times we're going to show that act of kindness, and this person won't even acknowledge us. They're going to keep walking. They're going to ask them to sit next to you, and they're going to just keep walking. They're going to say hi, call them by their name, and they're just going to keep walking, but they will never, ever forget that act of kindness, ever. Because you've put it out there, right? So what's the opposite? What's the opposite of success? Not failure. What's the opposite of success? What do you think? It's quitting, giving up, right? Look, this equation for some of you math people out there, if you can't see it, I'll tell you it later too, but S equals SW cubed times N. Success equals some will, some won't, so what next? Some of you are going to get an A on your grade. Some of you aren't, so what next? Some of you guys are going to make that friend first try. Some of you aren't, so what next? Some of you guys are going to get into the college of your choice. Some of you won't, so what next? Some of you guys are going to get the first job that you apply for. Some of you won't, so what next? You keep going, right? So many famous people have failed just to succeed. I think about, well, like even myself though, I mean, I remember I got cut from the 7th grade team, 8th grade team, 9th grade basketball teams. Ended up choosing to be a practice player my freshman year, and I got cut again, and I went in the locker room and I cried. And when I got done crying, I went up to the coach and said, I'll be a practice player. I had 2 points that season. I got in the last game, some guy broke his collarbone. Made it my JV year, junior year, started as a senior. But so many famous people, guys, have failed only to succeed. I mean, you think about Jim Carrey. You guys know Jim Carrey, right? He dropped out of high school when he was 15 to support his family that were homeless in Canada. They were living out of the van, and they would drive him to his comedy show so he could provide for his family, right? Now he's this famous actor, comedian. Bill Gates, it's not worth Bill Gates' time to pick up a $100 bill if he drops it. The last time I just checked, he's making $114 a second. He sold his first business that failed, Trafo Data, for $50. Bethany Hamilton, soul surfer, had her arm bitten off by a shark, right? 2 years later, wins a national surfing championship. Hugh Jackman, Wolverine. Yeah. Sometimes they come out. But he got fired from 7-Eleven. They said that he talked too much. Elvis Presley, King of Rock, his first gig, he got booted out. The guy said, boy, you ought to go back to driving a truck. The Beatles, Decca Recording Studios cut their label, said guitar music's on the way out. Worst mistake ever. Top grossing band of all time. You thought she lost your love. Well, I saw her yesterday. Sorry. Marilyn Monroe, 20th Century Fox, said she was unattractive, couldn't act. Oprah Winfrey said she was unfit for TV. And you guys go to Coney Islands? Yeah, here and there? Like the Saganaki Chiefs when they say Oprah? So the next time you go, you say, Oprah! Walt Disney got fired from a newspaper, said he lacked imagination. He was told a mouse would never work. The 3 circles, like for the mouse, right? one of the top 5 most recognized symbols universally in the world. Thomas Edison took him 10,000 tries to get these working. He said, every time I don't get it, I'm not failing. I'm just one step closer to finally getting it. His teachers were labeled, quoted, said he was too stupid to learn anything. Thomas Edison. If he believed that, he would have never done anything, right? And you think about maybe like the most important. I was speaking in Louisville, Kentucky a few weeks ago to some middle schools. I got to visit Muhammad Ali's gravesite, but also in the same cemetery, Cave Hill, Colonel Sanders, KFC. It took him 1,008 tries to get his recipe accepted. 1,008! Can you imagine if he stopped at 1,007? We would have KFC. But all these famous people have failed just to finally succeed. You cannot fail unless you quit. If you fail, you are not a failure, right? But so many times we think we are. You look at Albert Einstein, and his teachers were quoted as calling him retarded. Labeled a genius, right? He said there's 2 ways to look at life. One is though nothing's a miracle. One is though everything is a miracle. And I remember I didn't believe that about myself till probably my senior year of college. I remember being in my first class, I was valedictorian 4.0 Southline High School. And I got to U of M, and my first class was 700 students. And I got my first semester grade back. I never got anything lower than an A in my life. Love was based on performance for me growing up, so if I performed, I was loved. So I performed well. But I never get my first B minus. And I looked around the room and I saw this other kid holding up his A. This other kid had an A minus. And in that moment, I said to myself, I am not as good of a human being as these people sitting to the left and right of me. But when I finally said, I got my own talents, my own abilities, I have the effort, not always the outcome, things kind of switched for me. And I started focusing on this. Every one of you on the palm of your hands, with the lines of your hands, sometimes on both of your palms, you have the letter M etched on your palms, with the lines of your hands. Sometimes it's a faint line that connects it. Some of you have it on both. But this M stands for Michigan. I'm joking. I said that in Columbus, Ohio, almost got kicked out. But listen, this M stands for miracle. Upside down W stands for worthy. But so many youth I speak to, guys, can't see this. This is a 3rd grader from Massachusetts. His name's Dylan. And he walks up to me after my talk and he pulls this out of his pocket and says, Mr. Peace, I look at this at least once a day to remember who I am. He was told this from somebody that he cares about in his life and believed it. And it says, I'm a mistake. I'm a mistake. But he said, Mr. Peace, I don't want to believe this. I want to believe this. And so his class sends me this the same week. They all traced the M on their hands. They said that we're going to support him. I had an 11th grader named Emily come up to me at this other youth conference I was speaking at, and she started talking slower, so I knew something was going on. Like she might have learned slower than some of her classmates, but it turns out she had a stroke a few months ago, had surgery, and she's still in rehab. She said, Mr. Peace, I can't find my M. I said, well, can I look at your other hand? And her hand was clenched like this. She had something called Dupuytren's contracture, which is where the tissue in your hand starts to gradually harden on itself. The only way to fix it is surgery. I said, well, can I peel it open, to look? She said, sure. And so I go one finger at a time, and underneath was one of the biggest M's you've ever seen in your life. But for her to see that, especially in that moment, was huge. I get an email from her 2 weeks after. She says, Mr. Peace, I went to the doctor for a routine checkup, and I have full movement in my hand. And that's a whole other story, but more importantly, she was healed in her heart, right? But it's up to us to be that light to so many people around us that need this illumination, right? But it takes courage. It takes so much courage. I had a 6th grader come on the mic at a school in Utah, and he gets on the mic and he says, I didn't mean to be born like this. He had a cephaletic head. He had Soto syndrome. His head was twice the size of his body size. He said, I didn't mean to be born like this. I didn't mean to be born like this. I need friends. Will someone be my friend? And his sister in the back of the auditorium runs up and she gives her brother a hug. And it starts this whole chain of all these people that had been teasing him before to come up one at a time to give him the same type of hug, a word of kindness, and to apologize. And I'm talking at a high school in Southern California in front of 2,000 students, and this girl starts walking to the mic, and people are starting to laugh behind her back. She's got one leg shorter than the other, she just kind of has a limp, and she learns slower than her classmates, always getting put down for those 2 reasons. And she gets on the mic, and the first words out of her mouth, she says, "I like boys." Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, sit back down, what are you doing? You embarrass yourself." She said, "No, I love boys. And I love that boy." And she points to the star quarterback of the high school. People are just erupting in laughter, right? They're tinkling their pants or laughing so hard. And she says, "And I love that boy. This guy's California Dream Boy, Hercules, Golden Mane Locks coming down his backside. And, you know, he's just like 5-star All-American quarterback, top 100 ESPN recruit, getting recruited by all these colleges to play football. 200 pounds, pure muscle, pure steel, kind of like my figure. And when he walks through the hallways, they just part. He walks, they're like, ooh, right? She points to him, and in that moment, he has a choice to either join in on the laughter or do something to potentially save a life. So he gets up to be all in and runs down the bleachers across this gym, and he scoops this girl up, and he twirls her around, and he sets her back down and gives her one of the biggest hugs she ever had in her life. And what happened next took 3 hours. For the next 3 hours, all those 2,000 students, even some teachers that were just laughing at her, came up one at a time, gave her the same type of hug, a word of appreciation, just saying, "I'm sorry." Now, speaking in school in Chicago, this 16-year-old 10th grader comes up on the mic. People are starting to whisper behind her back, and she gets on the mic, and she's like, "Look, I'm just here to set things straight. There's been a lot of rumors going on about me the last 8 weeks, why I'm missing school." She said, "I thought I could do this alone, but I can't. I'm 16 years old, and the reason I'm missing school is because I've been going to chemotherapy treatments and fighting cancer." And she takes off her wig in front of the whole school. She says, "I thought I could do this alone, but I can't. I need friends." 2 girls in the front row jump up, they give her a hug, and it starts the whole chain all over again. But it's crazy because this football player, that boy's sister, these 2 girls, they risk getting judged themselves, bullied themselves, teased themselves, ridiculed themselves, spit on themselves. They risked everything for these people that otherwise would never be included. People that couldn't see themselves as miracles, right? They risked everything. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And the need is beyond there, guys. Every talk I give, I pick about 10 or 12 of these bracelets to put on, and they become my strength and my armor. Because every one, I have thousands of these, this is one of my bags. Every one that I've been given were from students like you, some younger, some older, that said, "Mr. Peace, if you didn't come today, I wouldn't be here tomorrow." I just spoke at a middle school outside of Cleveland yesterday, and had a line of 50 7th graders in the first assembly and 50 in the second that were just tears. And were at a point in their life that they may not have seen like the light of tomorrow. Maybe the craziest bracelet I ever got was from a 9th grader named Tom. And he came up to me, he pulled this out of his wallet, didn't say one word. But I instantly knew what was going on. His hospital bracelet from an unsuccessful attempt. And I looked at him and I said, "You're loved." I said, "You don't have to carry this anymore." And I hugged him and I said, "You're still here for a reason. You're still here for billions of reasons, for a purpose, to help others see the light, to be their light in this darkness, to be their hope, if you choose that." I got kids come up to me, 12th graders said, "Mr. Peace, I have this tattoo on my arm just to cover up an unsuccessful attempt." I get DM after DM, email after email, kids that threw out their blades as soon as they get home. That have given me theirs from the self-harm that's going on. Flushing their pills down as soon as they get home. Kids that come up to me and say, "Mr. Peace, I'm disappointed that the gun didn't go off." We have to be all in. We have to think about what true success means to us. We have to instill this confidence in who we are to be leaders, because the world needs us. Evan Ramsey, first Alaska school shooter. They just did an interview, I know I got about 5 minutes. But the first Alaskan school shooter in history ended up taking the life of a principal and a student back in 1997. And they go to interview him 20 years later. And he's facing, I don't know how many hundreds of years in jail. He's never going to get out. But what he says He was bullied nonstop. He was half Native, half Caucasian, bullied a lot for his race. But he said that if just one teacher, one adult, had said that they cared, if just one student had said that they cared, he wouldn't have gone through with it. That's how alone he felt. And I think to myself, why can't we notice other people around us that are screaming in pain? Part of it's because we do a great job of putting on the mask, but part of it's because we got so much else going on in here. How are we even supposed to try to even acknowledge somebody, our fellow human beings, our fellow brothers and sisters that need us? This 10th grader named Danny just drew this for me. Had the heart for your fist, your heart's as big as your fist, and the peace sign. And at the bottom he said, Mr. Peace, you gave me something I've been searching forever to find. A reason to stay. This is the solution, guys. There's always going to be the hatred and the failures and the pride and the ego and the poverty and the fear, all these things, but that's what can overcome it. This 4th grader was at this talk, or this little four-year-old was at this talk of this speaker. He's talking about how love is as big as the world, big as this universe, but it's also within all of our hearts. And at the end of this talk, this 4-year-old comes up to me and she's like, I don't get it. If love's as big as the world, but it's in all of our hearts, doesn't that mean that it's trying to burst out? And he said, that's exactly the point. But we have the choice. I was speaking at a school, and this 1st grader named Trey came up to me. I came back 2 weeks later to have lunch with the students, and he saw me in the cafeteria, this little 6-year-old like this tall. He's like, Mr. Peace, my boy, come here, Mr. Peace. And I said, Trey, what's up, man? He said, Mr. Peace, do you remember when you told us to treat people with more love and kindness, to believe in ourselves and show more peace? I said, yeah. He's like, well, I went home that night and I asked my mom, my sister, but especially my dad, to start treating all of us with more kindness, respect, and love. And he told me that his dad looked at him and said, don't ever talk to me like that. I'm an adult. Don't you ever talk to me like that. And he pushed him aside, and a week later took off. There was a lot of other issues leading up to that. So he came back to school on fire. He said, Mr. Peace, people will feel my pain. People are going to feel what I feel. And our eyes are locked. I said, you can still be a great son to your mother, a great brother to your sister, and one day if you choose to break that cycle, a great father. And I see a tear coming down his cheek. I'll never forget his next words. He says, I'd like chicken. I said, what? He said, yeah, Mr. Peace, they're serving chicken tenders for lunch. They're bomb. You got to try them. I said, what? And this 1st grader's mind was on to the next topic, but I came back another 2 weeks later, and he found him in the hallway. He gave me a hug, and he said, Mr. Peace, I'm choosing love. I'm choosing kindness. A 6-year-old. I mean, if he can do it, all of us can do this, right? I had this 3rd grader come up to me named Natalia. She gave me this piece of paper, and she said, Mr. Peace, what makes you happy? This 3rd grader. I said, well, doing what I love. She's like, okay, because I haven't been happy for a long time. But what you said today changed a lot of that for me. And she had this, it says, don't let the world change your smile. Let your smile change the world. Love, Natalia. So if you guys are lucky and all of us to be kicking it when we're 80, you live to be 80, you're going to have taken about 673 million breaths. That's about 23,000 a day, 3.4 billion heartbeats, 115,000 a day. But the goal is to make as many of those count as possible, right? By being all in. Mark Twain said the 2 most important days in your life are the day that you're born and the day that the Detroit Lions win Super Bowl. I'm joking. But the day that you find out why. And if you look to your left and to your right, and in front of you or behind you, if people are there, this is part of why you're here. This is part of your purpose. I mean, the grades, the A's, the jobs, the money, the career, all that's going to be part of your success. But the true success is going to come in the relationships, the heart-to-hearts, the interactions that you have with your fellow human beings. And my shirt's upside down for a reason, right? I had a 4th grader say, hey, Mr. Peach, your shirt's upside down. I said, yeah, it's supposed to be. Because when you're feeling down or look down, it says, keep your head up. I have a new motivation in my life. 2010, I approached these series of deaths differently than I did this past May. I lost my Aunt Linda. She was 80 years old. Within 24 hours, my Uncle JC was 81. My friend Irene Kopko passed. She was 103, Memorial Day weekend. A little bit after, our neighbor behind us, you might have heard the story, but Shelby Sieber and her best friend, she was 22, just graduated Oakland University. She died in a road rage car accident off I-75. They're our backyard neighbors. And my friend Egypt, if you've driven down I-94 recently, you've seen her billboard. The reason I performed the first track is because she was supposed to be on the chorus. She was supposed to be the hook. She's performed a lot with me over the years, but I got a text back in June saying the 27-year-old singer found shot to death in her house in Belleville. And they still haven't found out who it is. But all that's happened recently for me, it's just become more fuel to my fire, more motivation for what I do, why I lose sleep at night, driving out to Milwaukee 9 hours or 14 hours to Massachusetts or taking a flight down to Texas or a red-eye out to Cali, because what I have to say, I feel needs to be said, needs to be heard, and has the potential to maybe save lives. And all of us have that same power. I just got brought into Memphis High School in Riley, Michigan, near Armada. They lost a 14-year-old to suicide. Quincy Hope. Ironically, that's his last name. But the best way to honor these people's legacy, to make sure they didn't die in vain, is by how we choose to live going forward today as leaders, right? Confident, successful leaders. Something I shared today touched your heart. Can you raise your hand? Hands down. So I had 45 minutes with you guys. If I'm able to touch your heart in 45 minutes, you think about the impact you can have on someone's heart for an entire school year and entire lifetime if you choose to keep this open. Sometimes it's not easy because you've been hurt, but it's worth the risk. The love is worth that risk. If you need to reach out to me, I got a bunch of my cards. Feel free to take one or a couple up here. Mr. Peace. I got all my social media. Mr. Peace Geese. Why Geese? Why not? I got Mr. Peace 101, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. If you guys want to follow on there, you guys can get these shirts online in different colors, CDs, DVDs. I also got these other shirts that say one race, human, on the back, peace sign. That's one way to continue the message, but more importantly, just continue it by how you choose to live today. And if you do reach out, if we don't have time to talk today, I don't always get back to you right away, but I always get back to you. That's my promise. I don't have all the answers. I just try to reflect what you guys already know, that you guys are beautiful. You guys are miracles. You guys touch my heart. So I appreciate the time today. If it makes sense to bring me to your school, to bring some more healing, I'd love to come share my heart. If I have the time and the energy, just let me know. Before you blink, you're all grown up and life has passed you by. Because you weren't fully present and then you wonder why. People are dying with the music still left inside and wishing they found their purpose at age 25. Or 32 or in their 80s, really any time. Just so long as they found it before their last rites. I've had friends tell me, Peace, I need something besides the drugs. They want to get involved in serving others out of love. And other buddies who have asked me for more volunteer opportunities so they can bring some more cheer. They want to give more than they have been, especially to kids living on the streets or in an orphanage. So do something major, minor, heck, do something drastic. Just do something, but please don't wreak no more havoc. And while you're at it, now that you are spiritually awoken, make sure to change those around you through every word that's spoken. Word. Thank you, guys. I also do house parties, so yeah, no joke.